Hello, I'm your host, Jean-Paul Baran, President of Focus on the Family Canada. Welcome to the Thriving Family, a Focus on the Family Canada podcast. This is the space where family, faith, and culture intersect. Thanks to generous donors who support our ministry, you can enjoy the Thriving Family podcast ad-free without any interruptions. In this season of the podcast, we're talking about healing scars. These are difficult and challenging topics, but I'm so thankful to serve God, the great physician who has the power to restore all. For today's episode, we're talking about the stress and necessary self-care following the birth of a first child, but not from the perspective you might expect. When it comes to self-care, new dads may struggle to find information that applies to them. Sadly, this makes them feel unprepared and alone if they're struggling. You'll hear from several dads about their experiences and discover practical steps for self-care as a new father. Just a note, referrals to websites not produced by Focus on the Family Canada do not necessarily constitute blanket endorsements of the site's content. Let's dive in.
Flip through most books on preparing for parenthood, and you'll find a hefty section on caring for a newborn. Self-care for new moms rightly gets thorough treatment too, including a heads up about commonplace mood swings known as the baby blues, and the possibility of more serious postpartum depression and anxiety. Self-care for new dads, on the other hand, barely gets a mention, and that can leave some new fathers unprepared for their transition to fatherhood. Left to their own conclusions, many dads-to-be imagine their biggest challenge will be in stepping up their game once the baby arrives. They anticipate putting in a solid day's work in a sleep-deprived haze, then returning home to pick up more than their usual share of chores. And undaunted, they resolve to take care of meals, laundry, and whatever else their preoccupied wife points at or sighs over. Like any typical guy, expectant dads imagine problems that can be solved by action. But for some new dads, even though the awe and thrill of welcoming their newborn into their life never diminishes, a baby's arrival can kick off a disconcerting period of turbulent emotions. And just as new moms are warned about mood swings in the early days of motherhood, new dads need to be aware that they're at risk for depression too. Recalling their experiences, these four new dads give a glimpse into their early days of fatherhood. They all were pumped to be a dad to their newborn, even if their launch into fatherhood was rocky at first. Dad number one says, "I definitely wasn't expecting it to be such an emotional roller coaster in the beginning. With the pressure I already felt to be the breadwinner, and then the almost shock of the added responsibility of the father role, of being responsible for two people and realizing that how a father relates to their child can significantly influence the child's development." Dad number two says, "In my case, I feel extra stress in trying to balance helping my wife with our child and also from additional financial responsibility. My wife is on maternity leave with 50% of her former income, and now we're buying diapers, formula, organic vegetables for baby food, and new clothes every couple of months, and many other things, in addition to all of our regular bills." Dad number three says, "As a man who has a problem-fixing mentality, it was difficult to accept that I really couldn't fix a constantly fussy baby. Things suddenly felt out of control, and I really didn't know how to respond or react, other than to make sure that the three of us survived." Dad number four says, "I knew I needed downtime to recharge after work, so as to best support my wife and child. But I really wrestled with guilt for going for a run or going to the gym and leaving my wife with the baby, since she got no real break at all during the day. I would convince myself that I was not doing enough to support my family, and then stay in that circle of exhaustion and guilt. I found it difficult to find other fathers who really felt the same way. I'd usually just get the, yeah, nights are rough response, but I didn't really know if the other dads had gone through those same cycles of emotional exhaustion and guilt, and I was left wondering if it would ever get easier." Orly Katz is a licensed clinical professional counselor based in Rockville, Maryland, and is an expert in parenting transition. She warns that men, in general, are ill-equipped to deal with some of the intense emotions that their transition to fatherhood can trigger. Instead, they're primed to suffer in silence. As Katz explains, "In my practice, I often see dads who were unprepared for the new reality they faced when their baby was born. Where new mothers are encouraged to verbalize their disillusions, disappointments, and concerns, Usually in support groups or to other moms, new dads have been raised to not express their emotional needs. Even when they face stresses associated with the arrival of their newborn, fathers tend to suppress their emotions and act as if everything is okay. This, of course, is not a sustainable behavior, and new fathers can become depressed or have sleep problems. A good example is the need for personal and emotional space. Fathers who are criticized for taking time for themselves often can't really verbalize their need to de-stress. They can be perceived as mean or non-caring, and this vicious cycle can throw fathers into depression. There are other reasons, too, why a dad might hesitate to divulge his struggles to his wife. Typically, new dads already feel thrust to the sidelines, displaced by the eddy of that strong, nurturing instinct that kicks in new moms. Watching his wife become hyper-focused on their infant's needs, the husband can conclude, "Oh, my feelings simply don't matter." Or he may resolve to stay quiet, thinking, why add to her stress? Here's the reality. New dads, like new moms, can get postpartum depression. Mood swings in new moms aren't difficult for others to accept. It's no stretch to imagine pregnancy hormones and fatigue are to blame and to sympathize with a struggling mom. A despondent new dad, however, is much more of a mystery to others, and to himself. Most certainly, dads would fare better with more widespread awareness that expectant dads experience hormone fluctuations akin to their wives. There's research to back this up. In their essay titled, "Sad Dads, Paternal Postpartum Depression," published in the National Library of Medicine, authors Pil-Young Kim and James E. Swain note that in the majority of young fathers, testosterone levels drop a few months before their baby is born and recover a few months after. That's significant because low testosterone is associated with depression in men. Estrogen and prolactin levels change too. Estrogen rises a few weeks before the birth and drops again. Prolactin levels, on the other hand, steadily increase in dads right up until their infant's first birthday. Whatever the cause, hormonal change, fatigue, stress, or legitimate mourning over the loss of the free and easy pre-baby lifestyle, it's now recognized that paternal postpartum depression is very real for some dads. Several years ago, an analysis published in the Journal of the American Medical Association that reviewed 43 studies worldwide pointed out a huge spike in depression in dads 3 to 6 months after their baby's birth. While the average rate of depression in the dads in their baby's first year was about 10%, which is double the rate of depression in U.S. men in general, authors J.F. Paulson and S.D. Bazemore found that a full 25% of fathers in the study showed signs of depression at 3 to 6 months. It seems that just as new moms are finally reaching their stride in motherhood, new fathers can be bottoming out. And when mom is not reaching her stride because she's struggling against postpartum depression, studies suggest her husband has a 25 to 50% chance of being depressed too. So, new dads clearly are overwhelmed, withdrawn, irritable, but not admitting that they are experiencing depression. In the past, men have had few allies to help them recognize the signs of paternal postpartum depression. Men tend to withdraw rather than admit that they're overwhelmed, or they try to drown out their anxiety with other behaviors. Psychologists are only just beginning to catch on. And wives? If only they knew the signs. Wives might be more understanding when they're literally left holding the baby. But for a woman, detecting depression in her husband requires a leap of imagination, because depression in men can look very different than how a woman might express similar feelings. A stressed out, overwhelmed new dad might be weepy, lethargic, or sleep longer than usual. But on the other hand, he might show other traits, like a diminished zest for life, and becoming unusually flat with their emotions and expressions, becoming quiet, sulky, or withdrawn, a reluctance to socialize with their friends and family, becoming agitated, restless, and have difficulty concentrating or sleeping, become unusually irritable or even aggressive, retreating from distress by losing himself in work or hobbies, ramping up gambling, drinking, or other risk-taking behaviors, or driving more recklessly. For those finding the early days of fatherhood much more difficult than anticipated, here are some ideas to help. If you're a new dad, you can learn how to care for your newborn and help out as much as you can. Building your daddy skills will help you see that you've got this under control after all, and that you're making a real difference for your family. Choose to not be concerned if you haven't bonded with your baby in the same way that your wife has. For many dads, those strong feelings don't kick in until their infant is able to respond to them by smiling, for example. Try to find an experienced dad, a friend, relative, or Bible study member who can talk you through anything you're uncertain about. Take advantage of offers of help from friends and family, especially if it means you and your spouse can enjoy some uninterrupted time together. Remember, if your wife has significant postpartum depression, there's a good chance that you do too. If that's the case, you really will need to reach out to friends and family for support. Seek advice from a professional counselor or your doctor. Practice Matthew 6:34 by taking one day at a time. Life won't always be this crazy. Pretty soon, you'll love your new normal. And how can new moms help their spouse? Although you too, as a first-time mom, are carrying a huge load right now, resolve to set aside some snuggle time each day to connect as a couple and give your husband your full attention. Encourage him to talk about his conflicted feelings. Let go of any possessiveness you may feel about caring for your newborn and doing it right. It's important to let your husband take his turn caring for and connecting with his child in his own way. It may be some weeks yet before you can be fully sexually intimate, and should follow your primary caregiver's clearance to engage in intercourse. But you can help your husband by showering together or finding small ways to show him you still care about your sexual relationship. If you or your spouse are facing unexpected struggles as new parents, Focus on the Family Canada invites you to contact one of our professional counselors to discuss your concerns. See the episode notes for details, as well as other supports available for new parents.
If you wish to talk about this further, or if it brought something up that you would like to talk through, you can have a free one-time consultation with our registered counselors at Focus on the Family Canada over the phone. Give us a call at 1-800-661-9800 to request a consult. It's our gift to you. Thanks for listening to today's episode of The Thriving Family, a podcast from Focus on the Family Canada. If you like this episode, please leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe. If you feel led, you can make a donation at focusonthefamily.ca/podcast giving. This program is available ad-free because of the generosity of our donors. Most importantly, please remember that we are here for you and your family.